Studio 110.live. We're back at it Tuesday afternoon, and thank goodness it stopped raining because the rain was getting, shouldn't surprise us around here, but the rain was getting real old real fast. And I feel bad for all the people out there on the East Coast watching the subway stations out there in New York completely flood. People walking up those long stairwells to be able to get up to street level and being hit with flash floods. So when we put it into perspective, the rain that we get out here does not compare to other parts of this fine country called America, where we do what we do every day with hopefully happiness and joy. So with that being said, Dirty Harry here, back in the hot seat, Studio 110.live. Feels so good to be back on the air, shouting out the entire staff here. Erica, my show producer, and Julianne, and everybody working so hard behind the scenes. We got a lot of big things here in the works. Shouting out all the guests that have been on the show this week alone. We had a YouTube actor here yesterday. We had a guy, an expert in the social media realm. So shouting out him. And who else was on yesterday's show? We had, I'm trying to remember. My head is going a million different directions because people just think, I just kind of wake up and just come in and, put the microphone on and kick off the show. No. There's a lot more that goes into this fine radio program here at Studio 110.live. It's called Show Prep. Show Prep equals good show time. So that's what we do here at Studio 110. And I talked about it yesterday, and I want to, before I forget, before we get to our first guest of the hour, we've got the Laugh Your Ass Off with Icons of Comedy going down at ShoWare Center. It's happening June 30th. June 30th. Welcome to the show. My co-host for Tech Tuesdays, Aaron Lynn, the man behind Lineage Media and Solutions, just making magic happen here at Studio 110.live's headquarters. We got Bill Bellamy, D. Ray Davis, Marlon Waynes, Melanie Camacho.
Marlon Waynes, really?
Oh yeah. He's coming up on the Studio 110 airplane to host this show. We got Dion Cole, Ada Rodriguez. I'll tell you right now, it's going down. And I've said this throughout my entire career. When I launched Summer Jam all those years at the former radio station, if you don't buy your tickets, don't come crying to us. Don't show up at our door here because you'll just miss out. Like, you show up late to board the airplane, the pilots aren't going to wait. So that's that. All right, let's get into business right now. Welcome to the studio, our first in-studio guest on a pretty good sunny Tuesday afternoon here at Studio 110.live's headquarters. Maura Barclay. Did I get the name correct?
You got it.
Good. Thank you very much. If you can just come a little closer here to the mic so everybody can hear you and see you.
Some people are like this, right up on the mic.
I don't like a lot of Aaron knows my style. I don't like a lot of background, noise and interruptions. So welcome to the studio. I appreciate you coming in today for Tech Tuesdays.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
I know you had to adjust your schedule accordingly to be here, and believe me, I appreciate that. I know you're a busy woman and you got a lot going on. And
how was the flight in?
Oh my gosh, it almost didn't happen. You're talking about those torrential rains in New York. That's where I was yesterday. And we were literally just checking in moment by moment with United, like, is it pushed? Where's the aircraft coming from? Because it wasn't just New York. But yeah, I had an umbrella yesterday that was useless. The rain was just blowing up underneath it. I came in, I was just soaked.
Yep. So I wasn't joking when I was watching live images of subway stations in Manhattan and all over the different 5 boroughs, literally flooding.
Yeah, it was nuts. Yeah, it was flash flood. I woke up to it, and I'm like, what the heck? How does New York have all this flooding? But the rain was just unstoppable.
And like New York needs another issue to deal with. Like, they don't already have enough right now. Like, they haven't, they need another thing to be able to go back on national, international television. So I hope all the New Yorkers are okay. Hope no one was too affected by the flash floods in the subway stations. But I wanted to welcome, of course, you, Maura Barclay, but my co-host here on Tech Tuesdays, Aaron. And we've had some great guests. We've had people in here from the VR side. We've got some future exciting guests, the father of the Xbox. But you know what? The focus is on you right now. We're not going to even... I just kind of like to welcome you in appropriately, letting you know that there are, Tech Tuesdays is about people like you, Maura, that definitely have some significance in the community to discuss a lot of different platforms. And I'm excited. My producer did quite well here, like she does, giving me a lot of show prep.
It's only appropriate that Maura is our first female
Correct.
Tuesday guest.
Yes.
because of part of her life and her passion is female empowerment.
Yes.
Specifically, not specifically, but also a part of that in the tech world.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's only appropriate that you get to open the gateways as it is for our lovely female guests.
The floodgates will be
The
opened.
floodgates.
Yes.
There
yes.
we go.
So
Yes.
if you can imagine, the imaginary curtain right now is coming down, and let's think about this like a big Broadway musical, big production where everybody's here, and Aaron and I are ultimately
I
in
was
the
a
front
theater
row.
major.
Oh, there you
That's
go.
how I got into tech.
There you go. Well, you learn new things right here every day here at Studio 110.live.
Wow, and I was an actor for 10 years.
There we go.
That's
So-
where I learned how to speak.
Hey.
Hey, give it to me. All right.
And there's something called communication. Last time I checked, it's catching on.
It is
more
catching on.
more relationships would probably be intact today if people actually knew how to communicate and look at each other. Instead of beating around the bush and making up stories and making up BS crap drama. It's just like we don't need any of that. We don't need any of that. That's not our foundation here at Studio 110.live, nor Maura Barclay. So, with that being said, welcome to you being, of course, the first female. I like the leather. I greeted you downstairs, and anytime I see someone rocking a really cool leather biker jacket, I can't ignore it. So, where's this jacket from?
Oh, I got that. There's a little bit of a story behind it.
Let's talk about it.
All right, here's a little story. So, and this is one thing that I use. It's a tool that I help women build their confidence with. So, a couple years ago, I had cancer and I lost all my hair, and everything changed as it does. And it was at that moment during my recovery where I thought, I am never going to not wear something that I liked enough to buy ever again. And I'm not going to wear clothes that I think are appropriate for what I want to communicate. I want to be who I am. So I remember I was in the hospital on like Amazon shopping. I'm like, I like that, I'm going to wear that. I like that, I'm going to wear that. Even if it feels like, ooh, I'm sending a message I don't know if I'm comfortable with. I'm like,
Sure.
the heck with it. So I saw that jacket at Zara. I saw that coat and I'm like, that is the coolest leather coat. I'm getting it.
Yeah.
And with my bald head all sweaty and chemoed out, I rocked that coat recovering from cancer. And so it's like my special sort of, the little piece of edge that I think everybody has that's important to savor and use as necessary.
Absolutely, and what a powerful story, and I'm being quite serious when I say this. Just the messaging behind this jacket and how it ultimately carries you, it goes with you. It's like someone that is let's say for example they're handicapped and they need the walking dog or whatever they need, a pet to be able to get them through their day, and much respect to those types of people that are dealing with these issues. But just the significance and how this jacket really, you saw it, and it spoke to you, it talked to you, and you bought it, and you probably wear it as often as you feel. But shout out to Zara. I talk about Zara all the time. I mean, I'm sure you shop there frequently, and I do too. I go to the Bellevue store. Before they even opened up doors here, I had two choices, Maura. I had to either go up to Vancouver, BC, or to New York, and those are not a hop, skip, and a jump to just go on a little shopping spree. So when you mentioned Zara and you mentioned that whole story, that's definitely relatable to me. Just because I'm a big fan of what they're doing, and people don't realize that proper messaging like this, a biker jacket, and kind of an edgy biker jacket. With that being said, with the belt detail and kind of the mince kind of leather overall look
feel
on
like
that.
we need to get the jacket on the video at least for people to.
Do you want me to put it on?
If you like to, I mean, normally, yeah, we're live on the air, we're live on camera, so let everybody see this really cool leather biker jacket that Maura Barclay purchased. Did you buy it here at one of the local stores, or was it one of the stores around the country?
I actually had to buy it online because I was sitting in my hospital bed.
Oh, you bought it on Zara.com. Great,
Yeah.
great. Yep, they get their new merchandise up every. Looks really good.
And then we're going to ask you to take it off to talk about the
That's right,
tattoo.
because the tattoo.
We got it.
Well, so the cool thing about that, it was an exercise in intuition, and that's how I help women well, I mean, this is actually, it's
Go
not
for it.
gendered. It can, for men too. One of the things I teach, one of the most powerful tools that we have is our intuition. And looking at what we have a natural affinity towards is part of practicing intuition. And shopping, there is a retail aspect of it. When you go out, you're like, oh no, that's not me, or that's me, but I'm not, but I'm afraid.
Sure.
That's where this came from. That's me, and I'm not going to be afraid anymore.
Yep.
So that's what it is.
And no one should ever be afraid. I mean, we hear about, anti-bullying campaigns in schools today. We see a lot of celebrities and a lot of, professional athletes going to, inner city schools and talking about it because it affects a lot of players, whether they have a little brother or sister or cousin or neighbor. It's a big campaign that we're going to get a lot deeper in on this show with the right people in here because it's a serious topic that I definitely want to get behind. But kind of kicking things off here, I had a good opportunity here to kind of really learn about you before you stepped here into the studio. And just kind of going back, a number of years from the childhood days, kind of, growing up from there, you grew up, and this is a true life story about you. You were terrified that you would be attacked. And I want to kind of kick off, what ultimately translated into you having to be terrified that you would be attacked.
I grew up, as many, many women do, with a predator in my family. I would say probably 1 out of 5 women. It has this effect on you that it's invisible to you. You don't know why you're afraid all the time. You just are.
Sure.
And so I used to have nightmares about getting kidnapped. And as a kid, I was just afraid that someone was going to jump out from behind the bushes. The stranger danger sort of classic mythology.
Yep.
That was my mindset. And I had this also, and I don't know if this is a me thing or if this is part of my cultural Jewish heritage, which is if it's going to happen, it's going to happen to me. I just assume.
Yeah.
It's like the opposite approach of most girls are like, oh, that's never going to happen to me. I was the opposite. So that's where that came from. That's what set up that psychological sort of pathology. And it's what led me on my path to be sitting here today with you.
Yep. And thank you so much for coming in today and sharing that story because that's, I don't care what anybody says. In my opinion, as the host of this show, along with my co-host here on Tech Tuesdays, Aaron Lynn, that's a powerful story. And most people in your situation with a very similar pattern in terms of your childhood and how you ultimately had to overcome it, under your due diligence, under kind of the umbrella that was provided for you. Most people wouldn't be able to do that. Most people would struggle with this throughout their entire life and have to seek counseling and even sometimes do the unthinkable. And we don't even want to talk about that right now, but believe me, I've had the opportunity to sit down and speak to people. I've had past listeners call in to the former radio station where they didn't have any family members and they relied on myself and other air talents to be able to relate to because they had no one else to talk to. And I was kind of set the boundaries in place. Like I would never leave the radio station and be able to meet these people for coffee, but at least I could feel good and feel satisfied that when they called into the show, I could speak to them and do whatever I could as a good quality human being, someone that I try my best every day to be able to ultimately put a smile on the face. So that was really important to me. So let's talk about kind of how we transitioned from the childhood and being terrified and, being afraid ultimately to leave the house or open the bedroom door or walk down the street or go to a friend's house. How do we kind of emerge to a degree and say, you know what, I'm better than this. I'm bigger than this. I'm not going to let this affect me.
Well, I didn't have that sort of perspective, as a young woman in this country. It took me many decades of trial and error and trying to figure out how do I prevent this from happening. And so I didn't know what to do. I just knew that I wanted to do something because I was so tired, I was exhausted being hypervigilant all the time.
Sure.
So I thought, well, maybe if I was just a little bit stronger, that would make me feel safe.
Yep.
So I started lifting weights. And I lifted weights so much that I wound up winning 2 bodybuilding titles.
Huge.
Right?
Huge.
But I still didn't feel any safer. And I'm like, well, shoot. All right, that didn't work. All right. Well, I accomplished something, but it didn't do what I was trying to do. So I thought, well, maybe if I was just a little bit tougher, right? So I became a firefighter, as you do.
As you do.
With a journalism degree. And of course, this drove my Jewish grandmother insane.
Oh, I'm sure.
She just was like, Maura, what do you want to do working with those thick-neck men? Like, this is all she could, those freckled, thick-neck men is how she'd refer to them. I'm like, Grandma, this is an amazing opportunity and being of service. She's like, how is this going to help you with your advertising career? Because they paid for my college. So, yeah, that didn't go down very well. But I loved it, and I learned a lot, and I was so tough after 7 years. Dragging hoses, kicking down doors, throwing axes, peeling, people out of cars with the jaws of life. I got to do all that stuff.
Yep.
And I was super tough, but I did not feel any safer. And so I thought, okay, well, enough with this strong and tough business. Clearly, what I need is to learn how to fight.
Yep.
I need to learn how to fight like a man.
Yep.
That's what I'm afraid of. I'll just learn how to do that. I'll meet violence with violence. There's, that's the ticket. So I learned, I got multiple belts in Muay Thai kickboxing, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and Eskrima, which is like this stick and knife fighting art.
Sure.
It's insane.
Eskrima?
Eskrima.
Wow.
It's a Filipino fighting art, and it is insane. And I also learned a lot of MMA stuff because, you start kicking and punching, and it all goes down to the ground.
Yep.
So you have to know Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So my roots are in MMA. And so, I learned all these amazing skills. I studied for more than 10 years. And at the end of the day, I could do all this stuff. I could submit you like that,
Yep.
regardless of your size.
Yep.
But I was still afraid to walk by myself at night. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? This doesn't make any sense. I don't understand. And then one day I thought back to all of those confrontations I'd had with men that I was afraid of, that were dangerous. And it was never my strength or my ability to fight or my toughness that kept me safe. It was always my natural skills as a woman. It was my intuition. It was listening to my intuition. It was being assertive and setting boundaries and saying what was happening in the moment. That was what made me powerful, and that's what protected me. And once I figured that out, I finally felt safe because I wasn't chasing after some masculine definition of power.
Yep.
I was using the power that I was already born with,
Yep.
and it was more than enough.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's when I started teaching it.
Yep. That's so cool. And I hopefully, will you allow me to share a quick story with you?
Do it.
That I think you'll both appreciate, and it has to do with the Seattle Fire Department. So it's relatable to this point of the conversation and interview. But a number of years ago, I wasn't home at the time, but 2 doors up from the house, there was a house fire on my street, and I decided to talk to the firemen that were staying there all night to make sure that there were no additional sparks in the middle of the night that would, get the house back up in flames. So his name was the first name was Todd. I won't say his last name, but he was a captain on Ladder 4, which is down at Station 2, down on 4th and Battery, the Seattle Fire Department. So him and I instantly hit it off. And I asked him, I said, do you allow people to come down and, do ride-alongs? Because, I've always been fascinated with, I never really grew up from being a kid, ultimately, in terms of, always looking up to firemen and all that. So he said, yeah, come down to the fire station and give you a tour and, come out on a ride with us. Well, from the first time I did the ride along with them, that translated into sometimes a weekly pattern on Sundays where I would literally go down there every Sunday and ride either on Engine 2 or Ladder 4. And the Seattle Fire Department gave me, the shirt with the patches and a baseball cap,
Nice.
and they let me go on all the calls. And they did some training with me. They showed me how to hook up a line to the the hydrant and stuff. So I was fascinated. It was like the best way for me to be able to give back to community. Like I found so much satisfaction if it was an 88-year-old woman who slipped in the shower and she needed some assistance to be pulled out. It really gave me a satisfaction that I'm helping my community and I'm doing some really good volunteering work. So I thought you would appreciate that story. And still to this day, I still go down to Station 2 down there. And Todd is now an assistant deputy chief with the Los Angeles Fire Department. But the other guys that were in the squad, they open the doors with a warm welcome, and it's really a fun activity that I like to do on the side. So I can't give you literally enough respect and props to you for being a member of an agency, of a fire department, and being able to use the JAWS and I feel like it's such a rewarding job. I mean, 2 days a week isn't bad either. 24-hour shift, but all these guys have other side businesses, and it's a good job for them. So you're definitely the first. Firewoman, fireman, firewoman, firefighter.
I'll help you out.
Yeah, firefighter to be on the show. So
Hey, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Was Todd like a super a stocky?
Yes.
Okay, he's a truckie. So in the fire department, if you have a big enough fire department, it's like people who work the ladder crew. They're called truckies, and they are notorious for just being these just big, meaty, like throwing ladders, breaking down doors. These are like the pit bulls.
Yep.
The pit bulls
Yep.
of the fire
Yep.
department. They're amazing.
You were a pit bull, weren't you?
I was not.
You know? Oh,
No. Look, and this is the thing about the fire department. This is what people miss. Like when you're on a good fire department, and I would put a little asterisk, just a quick little side note here. I was also a union negotiator, and we used Seattle FD as our parity city.
Yep.
Seattle had it going on, and
Yep.
we would definitely be like, well, here's what's happening at the best, department in the United States, and it was Seattle.
Wow.
So I had a special, spot in my heart for Seattle Fire Department. But what people don't realize is, everybody thinks of like the truckies, like these huge guys who can just lift and push and pull all this stuff. But, there's also high-angle rescue, and there's also confined space rescue, and you need your fire department to look like a football team.
Yeah.
If you got all linebackers, who's going to crawl through that 15-inch drain pipe to get the kid?
Yep.
And so, smart fire departments, they want their smaller people like me. They're like, all right, get Barkley in the tube. There's a kid stuck in there because a truckie can't get in there.
Right. Yeah. And people don't realize too the amount of training that goes in to drive a it's called a tiller truck where you got the
Yep.
tiller on the back, and
Yep.
a lot of departments just have the one mechanism built in with the ladder just stays on one. But when it's on a tiller and those roundabouts in the middle of the streets that ultimately are designed to make people drive slower, those trucks, they literally, those drivers are so talented that the tire doesn't hit the concrete, and it could be literally this much space to get through, and they can manage it going code red, going light sirens and horns to a call. So
Yeah, that was that was actually something that I was frustrated with, because I wanted to just be a firefighter, but Boulder Fire Department was so small that you had to train up. So you had to act up if somebody was sick. So I had to learn to drive. I had to be an engineer as well.
Yep.
And so, of course, my first fire, I was pumping, and I was like, no, I don't want to pump. I want to hold the hose. But naturally, it was cool, learning about hydraulics, and that's a whole bunch of responsibility handling, a Class A pumper. So it was a really cool experience. But
Yeah.
Mara, how many
Yeah.
different jobs have you had?
you know what? I was recently called Forrest Gump by somebody.
Yeah, I'm just trying. Because I know you, and you talking about your bodybuilding. That was how you were first introduced as a bodybuilder, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't think of you as the big, strong, physical person. I think of your brain, right? You have just such a sharp mind, and I know that you've had plenty of jobs. How many jobs have you had with that mind? I mean,
I've never counted. I've been so fortunate to have all this amazing experience. So I was, a firefighter. I've got a degree in journalism,
Right.
and I speak Spanish, and my minor was in Spanish, and so I took that degree and became a firefighter, as you do. And then I've always had a love for acting and theater, and so my part-time gig that I did while I was a firefighter was theater. And then I got so much love in Denver that I went union. So here I am in this little city, a SAG actor, and also what's the union for theater? Suddenly I can't remember the name of it. I can't. Anyway, I went union in theater as well. And
wait, you were a SAG?
yeah, I was SAG, and
What were you in for SAG?
I was in a commercial. So I had an agent. I was doing on-camera stuff and doing theater, and I just rose through the ranks super fast. And I'm like, oh my gosh, now I want to do this. Well, and there was something that happened in the fire department that we can talk about later that sort of was...
Well, let's talk about that before we transition, because there's a lot of
Okay.
things I want to talk to you about, and we got 35 minutes left.
Okay, so there was a harassment incident that was handled very poorly at the fire department, and I was getting all this love in theater, and they made all the mistakes that you're not supposed to make, and this was back in the 90s, and so I was feeling like, I don't think I'm using enough of my talents at the fire department. I want to do acting. So I went and moved to LA, and I studied and acted for 10 years, but I also worked below the line, because, again, that's a mind game. So I was a line producer in a UPM, and that's when I started learning martial arts. And so I got to have all this amazing management experience, running a show, like all these different departments. It was incredible, and finding resources, and you have to you just have to be in the moment and figure stuff out. So that was very cool. And then I came back and I got into fitness because fitness has been sort of happening throughout. Mm-hmm. It's always, I've been doing it since I was a gymnast. I was a two-time this is Junior Olympics was a thing back in the day. So I was a two-time Junior Olympic gymnast, and so fitness had always been in my zeitgeist. And so when I retired sort of from acting, I started teaching. In LA, I started getting into teaching fitness and then martial arts and then therapeutic yoga. Then I became a therapeutic yoga teacher trainer, and I started doing conscious work and helping people on their path of becoming
better
teachers.
Achievement overall.
And it was teachers specifically, and I started teaching embodied anatomy, which is conscious. I know it gets crazy.
Out of all the jobs that you've held, so far, which is like about 52 so far in the last 25 minutes here to be exact, I would guess, and I don't want to put any words in your mouth, but I would guess representing the brave and the heroism of the Boulder Fire Department would be, if I was in your position, would be my favorite. But would you agree or disagree with that?
It's hard to judge because they have they're rewarding for different reasons. I loved being able to be a tangible part of someone's worst day and help it get better.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But in the therapeutic yoga space, people came to me in pain. Deep emotional and physical pain, and a lot of that physical pain was because of the emotional pain, and I could give them techniques and methods to get them out of pain. Mm-hmm. And it happened in front of my face, it happened in front of my eyes, and that was so rewarding. I think what you're seeing here is a theme of service.
Yep.
That's what makes me feel happy, being an agent of change, and I like to do it in a very tangible way.
Yep.
Yeah.
And when you were with Boulder, were you guys on the 2-day schedules, 2 days a week?
No, it was 3 days a week, 24 hours a day, with a day off in between, and then 4 days off.
Okay.
So, but if you were in a busy house, you didn't sleep, and then you kind of try to get caught up the next day, but then you're back at it again, and it's just brutal. You need those 4 days to recover. Yeah.
It's definitely tough. Well, I want to kind of transition off, even though I could literally talk to you for an hour just about being a firefighter and representing a great department like Boulder. But I want to kind of get into, some of the other reasons you're on the air with us today here for Tech Tuesdays. Of course, my co-host on Tech Tuesdays is Aaron Lynn from Lineage Media and Solutions. And so with that being said, I got Maura Barclay here, unbreakable woman, speaker, consultant, author, and held many very high respected jobs from the like we talked about, obviously with the fire department and the bodybuilding, and now I kind of want to ultimately get into Unbreakable Women, and how did the cycle of work develop into place for the Unbreakable Woman / development.
So I noticed in the martial arts space that it felt very counterintuitive for me. Uh-huh. I mean, I went there because I was afraid, and even though it didn't really help me with the fear, there was this piece of well, okay. So I remember one of my guys said to me, he's like, all right, so someone's up in your grill, and I'm like, well, wait a minute. How do we keep people from getting up in our grill in the first place? Mm-hmm. I felt there was not enough time devoted to risk reduction. And I wanted that. So basically, my whole life, I have been creating content that I myself want. It's kind of like an exploration in research and development, and I'm sort of the control group.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So I developed the content, and I workshopped it in my living room with a variety of women from my circle of influence that had very different backgrounds. And I'm like, is this even helpful? Am I onto something? They're like, yes, keep going. So I developed it further, and I got my very first paid workshop with Equinox Fitness. I was working for them at the time as a group fitness instructor. And they're like, yeah, you're onto something. This is cool. We want to offer it to members. So that was my first workshop in, I think, 2006 in Santa Monica, California. And I went on to speak at conferences, and I noticed when I was speaking, the women were taking notes faster than I mean, they were just heads down the whole time. And they came up to me afterwards, like, "Do you have anything more? What can I? What else?" And I'm like, I do.
That's when you know you're onto something.
I know, right? There, I'm like, all I have is my lecture notes. And so I expanded my lecture notes and created, so I'm a tactical thinker and I like to take people from A to B, kind of like a language.
Sure.
So I created a companion guide to the seminar that is meant to make you feel like you're in a seminar if you can't get to one.
Okay.
And there's a lot of extra stuff in it, like scenario work and mental training and perpetrator profiles. I did a ton of research with like FBI field manuals, and it's really cool stuff because I'm a total nerd. I was like, oh, FBI field manual in my house. I'm reading it all day. So that's how the quote unquote book. It's not really a proper book. It's really more like a field guide, or like I said, it's companion guide. It's on Amazon. And once I got that, all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, you wrote a book, and I got tapped by a military contract group that was developing a sexual assault and harassment prevention program. I got to write half of that program.
Wow.
So I got, now in the what's your favorite job? This is another one. I got to travel around the world as a subject matter expert with this team of military contractors, and these guys were former Marine snipers, they couldn't even tell me. You know what I'm saying? Like,
you probably felt safe around these guys.
Yes, although we had some very funny conversations of like, like the guy who was the head honcho. He was a lieutenant colonel of an incredible, very like a national treasure. He changed ground war tactics. He led the Battle of Fallujah, like a real hero.
Oh yeah,
he was kind of my manager.
Yeah,
I'm like, holy cow! Like these are my people right now.
Yeah.
And he's like, don't worry, I've already figured out 12 ways to kill you. I'm like, only 12?
Yeah.
I could fit in a shoebox.
Yeah,
You're
you guys are
losing
at
your edge.
you guys are at breakfast enjoying a continental breakfast, and that's what they're thinking about. You know, in the back end. You know,
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's who they are. That's their happy place. So
Yeah.
like, it was
Some
funny.
badass people. Yeah.
They're total badasses, and
Yeah.
I felt like so honored
Yeah.
to be working amongst these men.
Yeah.
P.S. They did not know how to work with me.
Yeah.
Like they hadn't been taught how to work with women. They did a great job.
They were thinking about how to kill you.
That's
So
right. That's how they worked out their anxiety about working with me. They're like, that calmed them down.
Yep.
That said, like they were always incredibly respectful. These guys were awesome. They really it was so much fun, and it also taught me how to speak to an incredibly cold room. Because imagine 300 people. Mostly men, especially the EOD guys. These are the explosive ordnance disposal. Okay, a hurt locker. Whole room full of hurt locker.
Oh yeah.
They did not want to hear from little ponytail girl, but this is pre-cancer. I had this big ponytail. And I'm like, so here's how we don't assault each other. it was an experience, and it was amazing, and it very male dominated, and that's part of how I started getting hired by Fortune 500 companies.
Yep.
Because now I had my curriculum is accepted by the federal government now. That's pretty cool. Like it meets training requirements.
Yep.
So then Fortune 500 companies started recruiting me, and that's how I started getting the mixed gender technique stuff, like how to, in a conscious way, and that's kind of what makes me a little different, is I want everybody to be able to get to where they need to go and be very outcome oriented in a safe, non-judgmental space. And all of that stuff that I did, because I love men. I think I'm one of the few female empowerment people who absolutely loves men, and I value men, and we must have men and women working together. And I won't man bash. I don't like people who do. I won't follow them. I don't encourage it.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah, that's kind of my gig.
So you've accomplished quite a bit up to this point. You've accomplished quite a bit, and believe me, the road isn't stopping anytime soon. With that being said, so out of all of the things that you've accomplished so far, it's kind of a two-part question. I mean, I think you kind of touched on it earlier, but what I'm more kind of excited to hear about right now is just your day-to-day. I mean, what's more as day-to-day right now, just with everything kind of under your belt, from everything that you've accomplished, traveling around the globe, speaking, going on 911 calls to assist people, being able to use the jaws of life, being able to overcome, childhood life experiences, where ultimately you've got to, clear that empowerment from multiple levels, from, the whole kind of terrified angle that we touched on earlier when we opened up today's interview. But what's really kind of the day-to-day now for you in terms of where you're at right now with things?
Well, it's kind of funny. The fire department was a bit of foreshadowing. because I feel the Me Too movement has exposed a cultural emergency.
Okay.
And I thrive in those circumstances. And I think that's why I'm so attracted to working in male-dominated fields where with the right message and the right messenger, real change can happen.
Yep.
Now, naturally, people need to be open to it. Not everybody's going to be interested.
They should be.
Well, I like to be careful about taking a should on people because, like you and I have our experience, there are people who are locked in their culture, and it's going to be a head against the wall, beating your head against the wall. I can think of
It's unfortunate for them, but
right,
okay.
right. See, I mean, you and I are on the same page.
Yeah,
but
totally.
You can't force people into change. It's just going to.
They're just stubborn. Yeah.
They're stubborn, exactly.
Yeah.
So my day-to-day is a combination of. I'm wearing a lot of hats. I'm actively hustling, looking for places that need help, looking for places that are in pain, looking for places that have emergencies. And Fortune 500 companies, particularly technology, have a bomb about to go off. Now, in the military industry, we call it not in the industry, but in the military contracting world, we called it "Staying Left of Bank," which is a great book, by the way. And this is my platform. I'm like, listen, 85% of harassment complaints are not reported. This is before Me Too.
Yep.
What do you think's going to happen?
Yep.
Don't let your company melt down. Let people like me get in there and help you. So I'm looking for the sort of the signals, the strongest signals, the biggest 911 calls and technologies. Why, one of the reasons why I wanted to be here.
Yeah.
So my day-to-day is looking for those signals, trying to get through the morass of bureaucracy so that they'll hear what people like me are trying to do. So big hustle for the gigs that I do have. I create a lot of original curriculum. For example, I'm working with the school system now, the Renton school system, on a stress resilience and mindfulness program for some of the people that work in their high needs kids schools. That comes from my therapeutic yoga days. So I'm building that original curriculum as we speak. I'm building original curriculum for a security conference that I was invited to speak to. So again, it's going to be a whole room full of men with their arms crossed, across their chest.
But that's nothing new to you. You'll be able to get those arms in a proper position where they deserve to be, instead of them thinking like they're the machos there. I mean, they need to show some respect to Maura when you're up there, because you bring quite a bit to the table, and believe me, I'm not saying that lightly. So they need to realize who's in the room speaking to them from that perspective. Seriously.
Well, we'll find out, And so it's a combination of hustle and then actually building the content for the gigs that I get, and then managing the day-to-day of all the other opportunities that are coming my way. And it's starting to happen.
And let's talk about, how is Unbreakable Women different than other self-defense programs out there? Because I'm very competitive, and I would think that this kind of question poses that type of thought process too.
Yeah, well, Unbreakable, and here's I feel like a great litmus test for our culture. I try to talk about intuitive empowerment, but nobody wants to talk about it. They just want to talk about self-defense. They want to go right to the primal, like, survival protection. I'm like, okay, well, that's where we're at. So I want to teach what you want so that I can teach what I want. There is still women in this country are exactly where I were when I was doing bodybuilding and firefighting and martial arts. They're terrified.
Yep.
They're terrified of the stranger danger, and there's a reason. So what I teach is not the physical skills. Like, that stuff you've already got it in you. Just most assaults, let's call them a street fight. Most street fights with strangers last about between 30 seconds to 120 seconds.
Right.
And so you don't need devastating punches and kicks. What you need is awareness and reducing your risk of being in that fight. Number one, that's what I teach.
Yep.
And number two, I show women how to use the skills they've already got. If they need to, God forbid, come to their own rescue if there's a fight. So what I teach are the real fears and failures that result in being vulnerable to physical violence, versus come in here, I'm going to teach you all these techniques, and then go forth, don't practice them. Hopefully they'll be at your service when you need them. I don't come at it that way. I teach mental training. I don't teach the physical skills outside of what you need, what I call street ready. If you don't have it in your body right now, if you can't just hit somebody in the face with an open palm, that's it. That's all you need. But I teach women how to reduce the risk of getting there in the first place.
Sure.
And the other thing that's super different, and I think this is a really important distinction, 85, excuse me, while I'm spitting, I'm so excited. 85% of the violence against women is perpetrated by men they already know. And so the problem is that we aren't powerful enough. The problem is we're not willing to use our power against people who have earned our trust, loyalty, and love.
Yep.
That's the problem. And those people are posing a threat knowingly, using that set of circumstances to their advantage. They're leveraging it in order to feel more powerful and dominate. And women are socialized not to fight under those or protect themselves under those circumstances.
Yep.
And they go right to denial.
Yep.
I talk about it, we deal with it, and women move through their trauma into a place where they realize, okay, this is what I need to do now.
Yep.
It sucks, but it's a self-defense emergency. I need to handle it. And one thing that I feel I want to do that not a lot of people are doing is have those conversations about predators in the home, have the conversations about domestic violence. Like, this could happen. And the other thing is, I teach compassion. I teach forgiveness. I have already worked it out with my predator. We've had the conversation. I forgave him. My book is a love note to him. And he's like, and he apologized, and he's like, I was in a terrible place. This is why I did it. I'm like, I get it. Mm-hmm. I love you. I forgive you. And if you can't be in a healthy relationship with me, it's okay. That's unconditional love. And that made me so powerful in my life. Sure. So what I'm trying to help women do is understand the circumstances that bring men to that behavior. Mm-hmm. So women and men can work a little bit better together. We can forgive the men who are troubled and see them as they are and not judge them so much. Just keep ourselves safe. Get away from that person. They got to go work it out. Don't judge the person. Just keep yourself safe from the behavior. Not a lot of people have this approach.
And not a lot of people have that, proper, courage to be able to make appropriate decisions, whether you're in a marriage or whatever relationship you're in. And you just mentioned something powerful in your last question here on the air, Maura. And you mentioned something that affects a lot of people today, and that's something called domestic violence that I take extremely seriously. And I have a lot of friends who have been in relationships where DV has come into the relationships, and in no way, shape, or form is it ever okay to touch another person, hit another person, put someone through bodily harm, cause them bodily injury. It's not okay, and it never will be okay. With that being said, I wanted to kind of get your thought process, because I'm asked, occasionally from friends, coming over or, calling me or whatever I can do as someone to be able to be a mouthpiece and just be a good listener. Something that bothers me to this day is people that are in a DV situation and then they forgive and they think, oh, this person is just going to do a 360. This person is going to shape up and there'll never be an issue again. 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, the police are back at the house. Boyfriend, girlfriend, whoever it is, whoever the primary aggressor is, they're getting hooked up and they're going to jail for it. And you see them allow the person back in, and I can just never figure out like what the fear is of. Are they so fearful that they'll go through this traumatizing part of their relationship where they won't be able to meet someone else way better, ultimately just like night and day. And I wanted to just kind of get your thought process, because I'm sure you've spoken on it and you've been part of it, being, with the Boulder Fire Department, but just, at speaking engagements. What is it about people that they can't learn? They can't learn. They're victims of DV, but then they go back to their old habits. They go back to their old transitions.
Yeah, that's a super complicated question, and I think that I could maybe do some sweeping generalizations that could answer it. I'm going to oversimplify in an effort to accurately answer as best I can. I think, what you're seeing is a couple of different pathologies play out. And you're looking, so one, we have a huge population of millions of women who are survivors, right?
Yeah.
Of sexual assault,
yep.
Be it in their families or however it happened. So you're having a whole bunch of women who are wounded and unsure, and they're what predators look for. They're low-hanging fruit.
Yep.
They're easy to manipulate, and they lack confidence. That's probably the key.
Yeah.
The people the men that we're talking about, they don't like confident women. They don't like women like me. And there's also a gray area where there's men who they become violent and the woman fights back and then it's over. Yep. That does happen. There is a particular unhealthy dynamic that goes on between violent wounded men, and violent vulnerable women, and insecure vulnerable women. They are sort of the pot and the lid, unfortunately. And I think we can't really talk about why this happens without a conversation about what produces those violent adaptations in men. I think that's the conversation we need to have, and here's why. Instead of asking me, why don't women leave these awful relationships? Why aren't we asking, what is making these men so violent? It's this culture's hyper-masculinized socializing that puts this pressure, I think, on men. You have to prove your masculinity all the time. Now, a lot of men don't buy into what I call the man code. You clearly don't. I know Aaron doesn't. You know, you are feminist in your way. You believe in equitable treatment, obviously. Just listening to your, you would be an awesome mentor for men. That's what you would be.
And I've done a bit of that, but and I think just to kind of add on to what you're saying, Maura, is a lot of people bring in sidebar angles to cover up their real issues. They'll say, I had a couple too many drinks with my buddies at the bar, so that gives you a right to come home and hit your girlfriend or wife, or my boss yelled at me at work. That gives you a right to come take the lampshade off the lamp and throw it across the room and hit her in the head. I mean, these are issues, and these are examples that are just so, I can't even think of the word. They're just so poor in taste to be able to bring these into these types of conversations that I've had to be around before to help my friends going through it. And like last time I checked, if you're having an issue at work or the boss pissed you off or whatever it is, you may want to go to your bank and pull out quite a bit amount of money in your savings account and invest that into a real serious counseling session. Or move out of your current place that you're living in and tell your girlfriend or husband or wife or whatever relationship you're in that this is not the type of relationship for me or you, and it's not healthy.
100%. And I think once here's something else that's a little bit different about Unbreakable Woman. It's different about me. I believe, now I teach intuitive empowerment. That's to help women be world-wise, but I want to be really clear about two words, the difference between prevention and risk reduction. I'm here to help women reduce the risk. They cannot prevent violence. The only people who can prevent violence are men. I'm here sitting in the studio telling you, the moment we shift the narrative to helping men, then we will prevent violence. Like, men are the solution. Let's focus our efforts on what is happening to these boys that is causing them to be so wounded, so upset, so either fearful or angry or hurt. I think it's coming from hurt. They're doing violence to other people because they don't have any other skills. And also, let's not ignore the fact that the bar for male behavior in this culture and other patriarchal cultures is low. It is insulting how little is expected from boys and men. And I'm coming to the table saying, hey, you know what? This is what you've been taught. Let's not judge you. Even if you say, listen, you know what? I had this amazing conversation with a Muslim man who was my Lyft driver on the way to Newark Airport. And he's like, I'm not proud of how I was when I was in my 20s, but I woke up and now I have a fiance and she's teaching me a lot. And the more I learned, the more embarrassed I am. I'm like, let's take all the shame off of how you behave because you've been socialized into thinking that's okay. But to your point, Dirty Harry, when you said men should know, there is a point where you need to seek knowledge, and you need to be willing to do it differently. Men are the solution to this problem.
So what do you think is that root cause causing all the hurt and the pain in our young women? I mean,
I'll tell you what.
I've got a son, right?
Yeah, here you go. The moment that little boy, and I see kids, I see this in playgrounds all the time. I see that little boys have the most tender, sweet hearts in more ways than one, because I have a little girl. She is a little lumberjack. She is so freaking tough. And I feel like she hurts little boys' feelings more than they hurt hers all day long. I feel like men have these, and boys have these beautiful, tender hearts, are capable of such strength. And when we say to boys, stop feeling. Stop with that sensitivity. That's going to make you, like everyone's going to think you're gay, or everyone's going to, it questions masculinity. You build up this completely hard-edged box, and we stuff these beautiful, intelligent boys into it, and they can't get out, and it hurts, and they're not allowed to talk about it. And then they're called into question, and they're told to prove their masculinity so that they don't get their butts kicked by their peer group, and they're policed constantly. You have to say crap about women. You have to tell sexist joke. You have to take that lampshade off and hit somebody with it, or someone's going to think you're not a man. And if you're not a man in this country, you're crap. You're nothing. That narrative there is unobtainable. Yeah. It's creating terrible violence in the hearts and minds and psyches of men. And to me, the strongest men I know are the ones who are capable of great love and great tenderness. And like the man who teaches me martial arts, watching him with his two boys, like, that guy's a badass. He could kill you with a napkin. Yeah. And he calls his little boys honey. He's like, honey, don't do that. And he's so gentle and kind. I'm like, that guy is a rock star. So I believe it starts with let your little boys feel. Don't stomp out the humanity. The humanity is what makes men amazing and hardcore and badass. That's where it starts, when we tell our boys not to cry.
Well, you'll appreciate this, and I'm not going to mention his name, but and I can't mention his department, but he's actually watching the show right now. He's a member of a local SWAT team here for a local department. And I was at a function with him a couple months ago, and a gal at the bar asked him a question. What makes you more nervous, to go into a hijacking situation, into a residential home, or to a condo or into an apartment, and ultimately, get the bad guy into custody or drop him, or buy his girlfriend a birthday present? And he looked at the gal with a straight face, and he said, honestly, I'm more nervous to go to Nordstrom's or wherever he goes to buy her a birthday present. And that's coming from a member of a SWAT team here locally. Like, he's more concerned about her reaction to his birthday present that he provides and buys for her than going into a house with a guy full of guns, ready to shoot at the police. And that shows you. I mean, I think that just kind of that's a true testimonial. This is coming from a member of a SWAT team that you talk about putting your life at risk. I mean,
Have him give me a call. I want to work with the SWAT team. No, but to your point, here's the thing, and I totally get this. He's got training for that. He's got training. He knows what to do. He's got a job to do. He's very focused.
Yep.
Men are not trained how to buy stuff for women, and also there's this pressure. Like, I want her to like it. I don't want her to get upset, right? And so, I mean, I make this point when I was a firefighter. There's the female piece of that. What scared me? Going into a burning building that has been on fire for a while, which means it could collapse, or ask for a raise. I promise you, I have no problem running into a burning building because I have training for that. I have gear. I'm protected. I know what I'm doing.
Yep.
Asking for a raise scares the crap out of me because I'm not socialized for that.
Well, it just shows the level of bravery that you have too. That just if you're driving and when you leave the Studio 110.Live's headquarters and there's an abandoned motorist on the side of the road, you see they're in dire need. You're the type of person, and so am I. I will pull over and do whatever I can to help them. And obviously, I'll start fire, before I do anything. But I will take it upon myself to help them because most people would just drive by and they wouldn't really care. So I mean,
well, I want to mention something that I think this is really relevant. I don't know if you've ever heard of Gavin de Becker. He wrote a book that changed my life. He wrote The Gift of Fear. Everyone should have this book.
Yeah, I know the book. Yeah.
Okay, so that book made me feel safer and also showed me I can help women by writing my book.
Yeah.
He made a point that I think is really important to talk about in this conversation. He said, at core, a woman's greatest fear is to be murdered by a man. I think that's absolutely true. That's why I'm so busy. It's absolutely true. At core, a man's greatest fear is to be laughed at by a woman. Think about when men are vulnerable, when they open themselves up to a woman, if she were to laugh at him, case in point, a man murdered his wife on a cruise ship. Do you remember?
Oh, yeah.
Because she wouldn't stop laughing at him. That is the death of men. Right? So I think that's... And
we got issues too.
Yeah, right, okay. He had some issues. But like to the point of your friend on the SWAT team, he's kind of...
One of them, by the way. There's a few of them, but this is one in particular. So
and your cadre of your crew, like what he's talking about is that I don't want to be embarrassed. I don't want her to get mad at me. When a man makes himself vulnerable to a woman, he's taking it truly vulnerable. He's taken a big risk, and I just want to point out, like, there's not enough, I feel, conversation around that. And like, all right, women, you know, we have some things that we need to work on as well, like recognize when a man's being vulnerable and be compassionate and try to hold his heart a little bit.
So to that point, how much in your book would you say is directly targeted at women, and how much could just flip the gender and be like, hey, men need to hear this same stuff in the same way too?
No, 100% women, because men attack women for different reasons than they attack men. This is all about men violent men looking for low-hanging fruit. The only piece in there that I feel is that would work for either gender is I have what I call the 6 critical skills, and my ex-husband actually used one of them to get out of being mugged.
Hey,
so it's awesome street smart skills.
There you go.
Yeah.
What are the 6 critical skills?
It's intuition, awareness, boundaries, powerful speech. Wait, there's another one.
Oh, I put you on the spot.
I know you put me on the spot. Awareness, intuition, boundaries, assertiveness. Oh, here we go. Powerful speech, and crazy. And crazy is the one that saved his life.
Yes.
And crazy is the real deal, because, you know, violent people that you don't know are counting on you being predictable.
Yep,
crazy, not predictable.
That makes sense.
Yeah, get crazy. Commit.
Commit to that craziness.
And I know a lot of women who have gotten out of very sticky situations by being a little bit nutty.
Sure.
Proper nutty.
Yeah.
You know, especially in New York where the bar is super high. Like, you got to get an Oscar, but you'll be safe.
There you go. If you're just tuning in right now, what a pleasure to have you here in the studio. Maura Barclay, Studio 110.live. Of course, my co-host on Tech Tuesdays, Aaron Lynn from Lineage Media and Solutions. What is your thought process, Maura, when you're at speaking engagements and, you know, single gals, you know, casually walking their dog around the park in the evening? And unfortunately, we can't ignore, you know, stories that we watch on our local news channels here in the Pacific Northwest. Your thought process on more women being armed, actually carrying a gun, you know, for the appropriate reasons. What is your thought process on? Because a lot of guys do carry guns, but your thought process on more women carrying guns?
I think it's a really bad idea for the following reasons. Number one, if you carry a firearm, you have to train with that firearm all the time. You're walking your dog, you better be walking it with your non-dominant hand, because if you're going to pull that firearm out, a concealed firearm, you better be able to do that under those circumstances. So it's not just about training with a firearm and being a good marksman. It's also about training under the circumstances that you would use it. If someone's attacking you, they very rarely come running at you where you have time to deploy your weapon. They're going to get you from behind, and now there's a weapon loose. So it's, again, now it's also bringing a weapon to a fight where there might not have been one. Very bad idea.
Because the reason I'm asking the question, and I follow news, I follow newsworthy topics, I hear about horror stories locally and nationally, and I kind of I think about it just from another vantage point, another viewing point, and if there would have been potentially a weapon in this situation, the outcome could have been different.
You're presuming they know how to use it, though.
Right. Well, when I asked the question, though, I did presume, and that was kind of injected, and hopefully I explained it well, that I would think that if a woman was deciding to take it upon herself to carry a firearm, she would go through the appropriate training, like anybody should. You don't just apply for a permit and just go into a gun store and just carry a gun to look cool. You get you have it for the appropriate reasons. But with that being said, and I've spoken to some friends of mine who were in law enforcement, and we talk about if there would have been a firearm in this situation to defend themselves, could the outcome have been different? And a lot of times it is yes.
Well, I'm not sure if you can, armchair quarterback an assault. I mean, you also have to consider the fact that when people get assaulted, unless you train for it, which fire department and cops and military are, they train under high stress circumstances. So the second a woman gets attacked, presumably she's going to go into a panic, sympathetic cascade, basically. So she's not going to have access to fine motor skills. All of the blood is going to go to her limbs, and she's not going to be able to. She's not going to be able to make really good decisions. So unless she's training under those heightened, the adrenaline response is what it's called. Unless she's training under those heightened set of circumstances, doesn't matter if she can hit a target. she's not going to get what she needs out of that gun. And if it becomes revealed during the struggle, now potentially the perpetrator has a gun. So you see what I'm getting at.
So you're against then women just, generally speaking, defending themselves and feeling more safe if they don't have a boyfriend or husband, or they're just single and they want to feel more protected. How about a taser?
I'm for talking about how we can prevent violent criminals being out on the streets as a form of prevention versus trying to figure out how can we make women more safe. If you want to make women more safe, let's put all of our focus and our energy and time and money into helping men not be violent. That's how we're going to stop 100% of the assaults.
I'm just taking it from a different vantage point and different perspective, because you would think that men just shouldn't do that, but unfortunately, since they do, I was just kind of trying to kind of bring in the different side to the conversation and think about how more women, whether they're past victims of DV or assault or battery, how they can ultimately, protect themselves.
Well, I think actually the buddy system is probably that, like you said, walking a dog, done.
Sure.
The guys are not going to attack a woman with a dog. There's just too many variables.
Yep.
And then having a buddy, I think bringing in weapons actually creates more problems than it solves. And ultimately, if we want to actually prevent violence, we just have to look into why are there so many violent men on the streets. That's where the prevention conversation needs to start.
Yep. And when we talk about harassment, because I just wanted to touch on this kind of before we wrap it up today, is it fair, is it realistic in your opinion to think that we can eliminate it?
I think in the work setting, it's absolutely possible. And I think it's also going to change. We're going to redefine what it means. I think as we move forward in this Me Too world, where we're all now dealing with a culture where there are real and meaningful consequences to behavior, now that we have that particular reality, there's more skin in the game. And I believe that companies are going to have an economic imperative to ensure that there's no more harassment. It's going to take some time, but it's absolutely possible.
Well,
Yes.
I hope that day is sooner than later. I mean, truly, I hope and I'd like you to definitely come back, be as often as we can get you here in the studio. There's a ton to talk about. My last question, unless Aaron, you have something.
We never got into the tech part, so we're going to have you come back to talk about.
There was so much to talk about just in terms of
like the
the
prelude.
empowerment and just being a good role model like you are, Maura. But what's really truly the big impact you're hoping for at the end of the day?
At the end of the day, I hope to be an agent of change to help move the cultural narrative to focus more on what we can do for boys and men to actually truly prevent violence. Like let's figure out what is troubling men so much and help them so that we don't even need to have these conversations anymore, because men are the solution.
They definitely are the solution, and I think it really kind of stems back and originates to one word that hopefully people will be able to adapt better with, and that's just communication. It's something called communication. If you don't know how to communicate, or you don't know how to express yourself, if there's inner frustrations, whether it be jealousy issues, insecurity issues, whatever the issues may be, then that in my humble opinion, just in my also my professional opinion to a degree, it all starts with communication. And if you're lacking that, I mean, it can be repaired, it can be fixed, but that's when I see boundaries of relationships and how relationships crack through the barriers, it really, whenever I ask that kind of that original kind of main question, how's the communication? Oh, well, there's issues. Well, there you go. So.
Yeah.
I want to thank you again. I want to thank you again, Maura, for coming in today to Studio 110.live, and you're more than welcome to hang out with us. You can hang out with us for another hour if you want.
Woohoo!
We got some other great guests on the big Tech Tuesday show today. Hopefully you had a good experience. Hopefully you enjoyed this fine radio interview today with us here at Studio 110.live. Hopefully I didn't ask anything below the belt or take you out of your comfort zone.
Oh, no, but I live outside the comfort zone. That's where change and transformation happens. So I loved your questions. They were really smart, and I think the thing that's cool about you is that you ask the questions everybody else is thinking.
I try to.
Thank you.
I try to, and I hope you don't think anything differently of me as a radio personality and host about my question about if your thoughts and opinions about women ultimately carrying a weapon to defend themselves and protect themselves. So.
I love that we have a conversation about it because without friction, there's no traction, man. So I love it. I love.
Well, that's kind of why I
discussion.
asked that question, because I knew kind of what your whereabouts are truly are, and sometimes to have a good interview, you need to kind of come in with those sidebar questions to just to get down a little bit.
We'll get down more next time.
We'll get down more next time, and I'm looking forward to meeting the people that you mentioned, and definitely have them reach out to my show producer Erica, and we'll get them in here in the studio for an interview or just a phone conversation or whatever we need to do. So
well, you can stay in here and hang out for another hour, but I have to go.
Okay, thank you for coming in today. It's Aaron Lynn, my co-host on Tech Tuesdays. I'll look forward to seeing Aaron again next Tuesday, as well as here every day at Studio110.live's headquarters. Next up to home plate. You like that intro? Next up to home plate.
I do.
You're becoming a regular, my friend. You're the former Mr. Washington. Because a lot of people think, Miss Washington USA. I mean, I've had quite a few in here. We've had Miss Vietnam USA. We've had Miss World, Miss Washington. So, just to be able to keep them all in my head in terms of giving them the proper recognition and proper respect.
Miss University Colorado Boulder right here.
There you go. There's the fourth.
Really?
See, just
looks like we're both into pageants.
What?
There you go. So I'm told from my show producer Salim. How do you pronounce your last name?
Juma.
Juma. Okay. I wanted to. Sometimes the last names, it can be a little bit tough. And
they can.
The last thing I want to do is butcher a name and not sound. I want to make sure that I sound correct when I'm.
It can be entertaining when you butcher things, though.
Yeah. So we got my guy Salim Juma here in the studio at Studio110.live, and Erica, my show producer, told me that you have a kind of a fun, big announcement that you wanted to come in for today to discuss. And I'm all about guests coming in and making these announcements. Taya Rose was in. She's going to be in Playboy internationally. Who else have we had come in? Huey P came in, let us play his lead-up single. The first one did over 1 million on World Star Hip Hop. We've had a lot of big people utilize this program right here at Studio110.live to make these big, cool announcements. So the floor is yours, my friend.
Absolutely.
And I'm all about highlighting the Pacific Northwest like it deserves to be, especially on this show. So the floor is yours. I almost said the world is yours, and really the world is yours because we have international viewers here as well here at Studio110.live. So tell me why you're in here today.
Well, I'm actually going to be in my first feature-length movie.
Nice.
Yeah. Don't ask me how I got it. I have no idea. It's a happy accident, things like that. I've been doing acting for quite a few years now, but I have never gotten into a actual feature-length movie, something that runs, hour and a half-ish. It's always been shorter films, commercials, stuff like that. So I'm pretty excited. I can't talk too much about it because until the distribution deals are done and everything like that, I can't talk too much about it. But
it's a huge deal. It's a huge deal. Now you're becoming a movie star. So.
Mazel tov! Congratulations.
Yes, mazel tov. Yes, mazel tov to you, and that's big. You're the first guest that sat in that particular guest position here in the studio here at Studio110.live that is now branding the Salim Juma brand in conjunction with, of course, you being former Mr. Washington. Now you're going to the big screen.
Yeah, we got to put a hashtag in front of it. Hashtag Salim Juma.
Yep, yeah, and you've done a lot. You've done a lot of modeling. You've done modeling, like you've told me, for Amazon and several other large contenders out here in the Northwest. And you must remember, though, I won't get to you, even though I want to, and I'm going to be respectful. But we'll for sure have you back in when you can give more details. Like, I mean, if I had to take a wild guess, it's you and Tom Cruise. But if I just gave away any details, I apologize. But until we find out who your co-stars are in this movie production, I mean, how did it come about? Were you at a coffee shop and a scout, an acting scout, came up and approached you, or do we have to stay away from those details too?
It just helps to have friends that.
It does.
are in the industry and like what you do, and they see you and they're like, hey, you know what? I have a part for you if you want to try and take a swing at it. And I got lucky that I nailed it. So
And I'm sure you beat out quite a few other people too. It's extremely competitive.
that's what I like to think. I never
Well,
know for sure.
That's the reality. I mean, believe me, they're looking at a lot of people for these roles. I have friends that work in the movie business in Hollywood, and it's a beast. It's definitely a beast.
It is. Actually, another announcement, I'm going to be competing in another pageant.
Great. Can we talk about that?
Absolutely. That's something we can talk about.
All right. So
When you say pageant, like, what are you talking about?
So this one, the new one that I'm going to be competing in is Mr. Bharat USA, which is like the Indian version of Mr. USA. There's also a Miss version of it too.
Okay.
But I met one of the modeling organizers for the competition, and he heard about my experience with the Mr. USA thing, and he said, you know what, I have this. If you want to take a swing at it, you are more than welcome to. Actually, really wanted me to be a part of it. So yeah.
So where are we at with this right now? When can we expect to see the full circumference on this next title that
August.
you've been August? Okay,
Yes.
August is my birthday. What part of August?
I think it's going to be mid-August.
Okay.
I've got to talk to my man Sandeep and get some more details.
Okay.
But I'm pretty excited. My parents, I come from a conservative Islamic background,
Uh-huh.
and they are not very big fans of what I do for a living.
Okay.
So it's kind of nice to tie in my modeling with our culture.
Sure.
So now I can go there and be like, hey, da, 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 da.
Yeah,
I'm actually dressed like,
Yeah.
and it's kind of cool. Some of the guys there have some Bollywood connections. So I was talking to some of the guys, and I was like, hey, man, if I can ever end up in a Bollywood movie and my parents can rent it, and I won't tell them I'm actually doing it, and then
Yeah.
they could just see me pop up and be like, oh my God, it's my kid.
Yeah.
So I think that would be hilarious.
Can I ask, what are the categories? What categories do you have to win?
Well, for this one, it was talent, Indian like cultural wear, and then Western formal wear. There was one more, speaking, I think.
Speaking, like,
Yeah.
where they ask you a question and you have to answer kind of thing?
Yeah, it's a little bit different from like the Mr. United States pageant. For that one, there was talent, formal wear, the infamous swimwear. So there was all those. So it's a little bit different, but I'm looking forward to the differences. It'll make it a little bit more interesting for me.
What's your talent?
My talent, I can do funny accents.
You do accents?
I
Did you
can.
know this?
I didn't, and I'd like to hear some of this. And thank you, by the way, for sticking around and being you're a pretty darn good co-host on top of being a firefighter.
I think so too. She's pretty good at this.
You're the first probably firefighter in the United States of America that just kind of hopped on to. I mean, I'm sure it's not your first interview that you've done, but you're definitely holding the duties well, my friend, of acting as a good co-host. And believe me, I don't say that lightly. So let's hear some of the impressions that you can do from whatever you would like to share with us here on this fine program today.
Absolutely. So my favorite is the British accent.
Uh-huh.
It takes me a little bit to work into it. It usually works best when I've watched a lot of British comedy. That's why I started picking it up. I have a lot of family in London. And the funniest part is when they came for a wedding in New York, they actually could not tell the difference between my accent and a normal London person. So it was quite entertaining.
There you go. That was
Gold.
on a 1 to 10. I'd give that probably a 12 on a 10. Okay, let's hear the
Thank
next
you.
one. Yep.
What else you got? I got to hear more.
Wow. Okay, I'll
Can
have
you do
to
some
work into some of
Chinese
this.
or Japanese or?
Scottish?
I'll have to go practice those. It's been a while since I've done that. You have to remember, I haven't competed in a year, so I haven't been practicing my accents, and I was a lot better when I was drinking.
Hey,
It helps, doesn't it? It helps. You speak a foreign language after a beer, it's like, oh, there it is.
Mm-hmm.
or some
Whiskey.
Martinelli's apple cider for us people that enjoy that on a random Tuesday night with some good salmon at the house. So
Nice.
that's but hey, nothing against alcohol in any way, shape, or form. But the British accent was a 12 on a 10.
Thank you so much, Harris.
And I'm a harsh critic. So
I'll bet you are.
Yes. So I'm before I know I can't touch and talk more on the big acting announcement, but I do have one more question about
Absolutely.
that. Are you at all nervous in terms of the memorization?
Oh dear God, yes.
That goes into sustaining a role, probably like you're about to be presented and given. I mean, memorization is a tough thing to do. You know,
It absolutely is, and especially since they bumped up my role from where I was previously, it is coming with some more memorization, and it is frankly terrifying. Especially because there's a really big switch of emotion in this particular role, and it's definitely I mostly work on the modeling side, so acting is not new to me, but it's not exactly my forte yet.
Yep.
So it's definitely a lot of practice. I have to practice my character. I don't do the whole live-in character thing because I have to like work a regular job too, and that could be a little weird. But
Yep.
I hope one day I can do that though, like live as my character for a few weeks. I think that would help with the memorization. But yeah, it's tough, man.
There you go. It's Tech Tuesdays here, and I got Salim Juma, former Mr. Washington, and about to be a movie star on the big screen here. Another, celebrity coming out of the Pacific Northwest. Always happy to see that. I usually see a lot of artists, a lot of music artists, emerging here out of the Pacific Northwest.
Speaking of music, Harris,
Yep.
I don't know if you've heard of Cut.com. They're a studio in Seattle. They have 4,500,000 subscribers on YouTube.
Uh-huh.
And their claim to fame is like they do like Truth or Drink with like exes and
Okay.
stuff like that, or they do like grandma smoking weed for the first time.
Yep.
So they have some interesting videos.
Yep.
So to mention music stuff, I did a video for them last week, and while I was talking on camera, this is totally off topic.
I'm glad we're talking about it because you know me, I'll be thinking about a question in relation to this, but please.
So I was talking, and I don't even know how we got on the reference, but I said that my life was like like the lyrics to a Fetty Wap song, Trap Queen, and the producer asked me to sing the song, and I was like, oh, I don't know the lyrics, trying to like get out of it. I was like, no, don't make me do this. And then he pulled up the lyrics on his phone and made me sing it. So I sang that to the camera, and there's like 4 million people that'll probably see it. It's
And
terrifying.
when can we? Well, that's actually quite exciting too. When will this be out for myself to be able to?
You'll get a good laugh out of it.
When can I play this on the show? I'm dying to play this. So when
Oh
can
dear
I?
God, what have I done to myself?
Yeah, we're
It'll
gonna
be
play
next
it
month.
Next month, and there's no access to it right now to play it before it goes out to everyone else.
You know what? I will reach out. I've been meaning to put your producer in touch with them anyway. So.
Yes, please have Erica reach out to them. I would like the opportunity to play it before they do.
Sure.
And then you can just bounce that all over your social and let everybody
Absolutely.
know that there's a big entertainment piece awaiting them here at Studio110.live.
Is this going to be a
Absolutely.
new talent for your next and upcoming pageant? Could you do the Fetty Wap song?
I really hope not. I had this fantasy of being like the new Jay Sean. I remember that singer
Yep.
from like a few years ago.
Yep.
But I don't know, man. I sing in the shower. I don't know if I'm ready to come out to everybody yet. I'll try though.
Come on.
Ultimately, what I want to be able to do is I want to play the version that you did, and then I want to see if we can. Then I want to play I want to play both versions. I want to play the real version, and then I want to play the version that you did, and then I want to also see if we can get Fetty Wap to call in on that show. I want to see if we can get Fetty Wap to call in on that show and really be, a true judge. I'm sure it would put a huge smile on his face knowing that Salim Juma, remixed this song.
He
Ultimately,
will totally think it's hilarious. Probably not in the way we're hoping, but he'll think it's funny.
Absolutely. So let's before we kind of transition here into the next topic of conversation, because we definitely touched on Mr. Washington and then your new pageant or pageantry or however we're going to define it, your new one that's currently in the works. Where's the men's pageant world headed in your opinion right now?
Well, the Mr. USA pageant is actually not all that old. It's only a few years old. And I did a movie in Idaho a couple months ago. And you know what? The first thing the lead actress asked me, she was like, so you do pageants? I thought those were only for girls.
Yep.
And I was like, you know what? I had the same reaction. I did not think that was like a thing. But I think the fact that we have men's pageants now is really interesting.
Totally.
I think it's
I do
great.
too. I do too.
I think we should be able to do them and compete, and it's a great way to have a platform to speak about issues that are important to you. And it's part of having, we have women's pageants. Why don't we have men's pageants?
Exactly.
A lot of the girls that I've told about it or have talked about it or have matched me on Tinder, because I totally use it on my Tinder. They always ask me, they're like, so, I've always wanted to go see a bunch of guys in a Speedo on stage, but we've never gotten the chance. So it's kind of cool,
How do you feel when you're up there? Like, because it seems to me like now you're getting a little slice of like the judgment. Like, I don't know about your producer, but like when we walk out in the street, like people are just looking at you because you're a woman and you're out. Do you like, how does it feel being judged in that way? How do you feel about like being scored?
I confess, it's hard to say this. I still remember, I think it was Kit Harington, the guy from Game of Thrones, and he was just like he talked about how he doesn't like to be called a heartthrob and all that. Me, I don't know. I like the self-confidence boost. I have to be honest. I really like the self-esteem, self-confidence boost. When a girl tells me that she thinks I'm hot or like I get judged in like a positive way, it's really, really nice. But I haven't experienced the negative side of it.
Okay.
So I haven't had people call me out and be like, oh, you're ugly, but I haven't had that kind of stuff happen to me. So I haven't. Having not experienced the negative portion, it's a lot easier for me to be like, yes, I love this.
So there's no like body shaming if you're not perfect or anything like that?
Actually, there can be. I actually have an ostomy bag attached to my stomach. My platform is one that's based on disability activism and showing people, hey, I'm not perfect. I don't have perfect six-pack abs, but I still do this because I like doing it. It can get a little rough, but I'd say the judgment comes more from myself than anybody else. It's kind of hard because it's like, you spend all this time in the gym, you train and train and train, and you're like, oh, I have to look like Channing Tatum. I have to look like Channing Tatum. I have to look like Channing Tatum. But you're not being fair to yourself. As long as you're healthy, that's the important part.
We can talk a little bit closer to the mic here. Thank you.
Yeah, that's the important part, and I think it's sad how much importance we place on appearance in our society.
Yep.
It's very sad.
It is very sad, and Maura and I, we touched on. We really didn't touch on it much, but you can probably. Pick up with what I'm about to say, Maura. My co-host, I wasn't expecting you to be my co-host, but you're acting as a damn good co-host. Maura Barclay here, my first guest of the show here today, Tech Tuesdays, a very well-renowned speaker and consultant and author, and we'll get some more information up here on our Instagram at studio110.live. With that being said, in terms of looks, like, I don't know. My mom always raised me and always asked me kind of a key, crucial question, years ago. And what's more important to you, looks or how you're treated ultimately? I mean, I get looks are important. I get it. But, would you rather be with someone that's just, absolutely stunning, that's going to treat you like literally like crap? Or would you rather be with someone that's actually going to treat you with respect and be nice to you and might not be a supermodel? I mean...
And that's actually a really important point. I have had exes who I met through the modeling industry, and they were absolutely stunningly gorgeous, like insane. But they didn't treat me that great.
Yeah.
And also, we didn't have that much in common.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I didn't.
They're very, very shallow people. Yeah.
I didn't really enjoy hanging out with them, and honestly, like, it's so much more important to like actually have a good connection with the person you're with.
Yep.
So,
you bring up such an important point, because especially for women, and you're starting to take a step into the pool. Men are valued for different reasons than women, and women, we're taught early on, like, the way you look is cash money in the bank.
Yep.
If you're hot, you're going to have an easy, good life. In fact, more attractive women get promoted more frequently. Like, do the math on that. But for women who are not traditionally beautiful but have a lot on the ball, I'm always curious to hear the male point of view about, like, how important is it to you? Like, especially in the modeling world, you're right at the apex of that hot people, right? And now that you're getting into pageants, appearance is kind of important.
It is. Yeah. And it's a huge stressor, honestly. Like, when I compete, I have to like spend like 4 hours in the gym every night, and it's just like I'm always so careful about what I eat and stuff like this, and I'm like, man, I cannot do this like 24/7.
It's hard to maintain, right?
scary.
Yeah, it's like a full-time job being hot, people.
Well, what is that? What is the workout regimen for Mr. Salim Juma here when you're before you're about to do a modeling shoot or you're like I said, you're about to hit the big screen. So when you hit the big screen, I'm sure it'll be a lot more consistent, a lot more repetitive for you
Definitely.
to be in the gym. So what will the workouts consist of ultimately?
Well, I do a ton of cardio. I have a body type that puts on weight and muscle more quickly, so I have to do a ton of cardio. I typically run anywhere from 40 to 50 miles a week.
Wow.
So I do a lot of cardio. I do a lot of abdominal workouts. I have to be really careful. That's a subject I definitely want to touch on. With an ostomy bag, you have to be so careful with working out. Even lifting too much weight too fast, I can rip open the scars that are on my belly and what's holding my stomach together. So that would be rather unfortunate.
Yes.
So yeah, it can be really, really tough. So I do a ton of ab workouts. I do a ton of weights and free weights and machines, and then I split them up by body, by body part. So biceps, triceps one day, and then shoulders and back.
Yep.
I actually had a trainer that I was working with for quite a while. And it's tough though, because it's really hard to do it, especially when you have a disability like that, but you're so obsessed with looking good and looking hot,
Yep.
That's kind of the balance that I had to learn.
Yep.
You mentioned you were on Tinder, and I'm a recent Tinder user. It's Tech Tuesday. Let's talk Tinder for just a second.
That's a great
Let's do it.
idea.
So, because when I'm recently divorced, and when I was married, there
There's
was
Bumble too, right? Isn't it?
I
hear a lot
like
of
Bumble. That's my favorite.
I haven't-
people, my friends tell me about Bumble and
I
all
haven't
these.
gotten on Bumble yet. Like one thing at a time. I'm kind of old, so Tinder was enough. I mean, it's kind of feeling my bad with. But when I was first married, there was no Tinder, so this was like my new entree into holy cow. But Tinder is so different than eHarmony or right.
Yeah.
Like it is all who's hot, who's not, like that. So my question to you is, because you're an advocate, obviously, and an amazing role model for hot people with disabilities, right? Maybe let's just call it disabilities, because those are your words. I am so curious. How do you go about once you're meeting somebody? How do you go about bringing up this is something that's going on with me, or do you put that in your profile? When does that conversation happen?
Great question. And you beat me to it. I was about to ask that. So
is
I'm
such
so
a good
happy.
one.
I'm so happy you asked that question. No, you don't need to apologize at all. You're acting as the co-host today. So wonderful question, Morris. So please, that's a great question. Go ahead and answer, please.
Actually, I have a lot of experience with the online dating world, and I will say I have had issues in the past. There's a screenshot that I use in my motivational seminars, and it's from a woman I started talking to, and she found out I had an ostomy bag, and she basically told me that she could never find me attractive because of it. Specifically, I have had many women disappear. When I've told them about it, both being honest and saying, hey, this is kind of something that I can't find attractive, I'm sorry. And I've had many more that have simply disappeared and just vanished afterwards. But you know what? I started putting it in my profile. I talk about it. I'm like, hey, I have an ostomy bag. This is who I am. This is part of me. And basically, I really like it because although I go on less dates, the ones that I do go on, I have a much better connection with the person.
That's so awesome.
They already know that I'm dealing with this, and they are already okay with it. I do want to talk about this because everybody tells me, dude, don't tell people about that. Don't put it in your profile. You're going to just, push so many people away and scare them off. And I'm like, no, dude, this is part of me. This is just who I am. If I can't be confident in who I am, how do I expect someone else to like me for who I am?
Correct.
If I don't like myself for who I am.
Well, and that's just their discomfort with the idea of them. Dude, you are so you. I love your self-acceptance. That little move that you did, just putting in your profile, that's totally boss. This is what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
That's a little bit of a surrender. That's a little bit of vulnerability, and that makes you totally badass.
And you know what's
Thank
going
you
to
so
happen.
much.
You know what's going to happen. And please take my suggestions when I say what I'm about to say here, Salim. When you hit the big screen, I guarantee all those people that ran away and said, I'm unattracted to this, and they just disappear and they act really shallow and ultimately quite rude. I mean, just ultimately, once they see what you're about to come out with in terms of this new movie or the upcoming projects, I guarantee you that some of those people will be coming back and reaching out and saying like, hey, like now like maybe I should reach out to them, and you take it the way you act accordingly in the way you want to act, but personally, I would always remember they wouldn't get a second of my time.
Yeah, and I just,
I wouldn't get a second. I would not return any of their text messages. I wouldn't return any of their calls. I would just say, okay, like I remembered how you treated me before I got this new self-acclaimed fame, and now all of a sudden you want to be around me, and that really shows a true kind of inner sense of who these people really are.
Oh, it absolutely does, and I completely agree. I just want to touch on the point that I used to have that thought, like I'm like, okay, I'm on a journey, I'm going to make my bones, somehow I'm going to become famous and prove to all these people that I'm awesome and da-da-da-da. And I'll say that it made me very bitter. It made me have some very harsh feelings towards people. So the only thing I want to do is, whether I make it or not, it doesn't matter either way. I just want to be full of good vibes and just self-acceptance. And even those people that turned me down and didn't like me for whatever reason, they want to come back into my life. I mean, I'm always going to remember that. You have to, otherwise you're going to get screwed over.
Yeah.
You're sitting here announcing you're in a feature film, like you made it. Like how?
Yeah.
What else do you want? Like you're there.
Yeah.
Way to be there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. On top of being a new Mr. Give me the
Mr. Bahrat.
Mr.
Bahrat.
Bahrat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bahrat.
Yeah, there you
we
go.
need to work on our accent.
There you go. we do. Yes, we do, and that's why I like to make sure I'm pronouncing names to the fullest.
Absolutely.
I've got Mr. Bahrat here in the studio, and the former Mr. Washington, and now up and coming to a degree, but not so much up and coming. You are about to embark on a new movie. But what I'm excited about is to play the Fetty Wap version
I can't wait.
of Salim, to get you in here and have you share it with your fan base and have this be the outlet to premiere that to the world. So
I will always use you as my outlet, Harris, every time.
I appreciate that. And let's kind of wrap it up with in addition to you modeling and now getting into the acting and working out consistently. What are some things that you like to do on your off time that maybe people don't know about you that they should know about you? Because we touched on a lot of things today.
Well, it's interesting. I actually am trying to find a boxing gym to train me. It's very hard because of my disability. A lot of people, they're like a little bit iffy, the liability issues and whatnot. And I don't care. I want to do it. I did 6.5 years of mixed martial arts when I was in my teens, and I really enjoyed that. And I'm not going to let an ostomy bag stop me. I'm going to go do it anyway.
You shouldn't. And what are some ways that people that are trying to not? I know you can't talk about it much, and I want to stay. I want to be very respectful about it. But are there some ways that people can hit you up on social media that are up and coming models? Or up and coming trying to be actors like yourself? What are some ways that the fan base can reach out to you, Salim?
Yeah, best way to find me is just to Google my name, Saleem, and the last name's Juma. I'm always willing to talk to upcoming models and actors. I actually had a guy reach out to me just a month ago, and he told me I talked to him last year or something when we were at college together. And he tells me, he's like, hey man, I just got signed with this agency. You actually inspired me to become an actor. I'm seeing your Snapchats and stuff. And I'm like, dude, I'm going to become an actor. And he did. He got himself signed to an agency.
See?
Yeah, it feels great.
I ask that question to all my guests just because the way you just answered that question is just a real life scenario and testimonial. Like that's why I ask those questions. So what are some ways that people can contact you on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter?
Yeah. So my Instagram is at Mr. Washington United States, and then my Twitter handle is @Ostomy That was my old one that I made when I just got out of the hospital.
That's awesome.
Yeah, just on Facebook, just search Salim Juma, and you can check me out there and send me a DM, and I will be happy to talk to you about however I can help.
There you go. There you
best
go.
way to learn is talking to people.
There you go. And if I happen to talk to Fetty Wap in the next week or two, which I very well may, should I let him know what we have in the works here at Studio 110 or keep it a surprise even for him?
I think you should tell him. It's going to be embarrassing for me, but you know what? Just go ahead and tell him.
All right. Well, I'll spill the beans and I'll make sure Erica, my show producer, reminds me before I get. And please stick around, guys. The mics are here for a reason. So if you guys have to leave, I totally understand. But before I get to my next special guest of the hour and my new buddy, Mr. Anthony Hamilton, I want to talk about the Laugh Your Ass Off with Icons of Comedy. It's going down at the Shower Center in Kent, Washington, June 30th. You're not going to want to miss this. We got a star-studded lineup that you're going to want to be buying these tickets. They're on sale right now. You can go down there to their box office. You can call them. It's the Shower Center in Kent. They officially went on sale yesterday at 3 p.m. All right, here's the lineup. We got Bill Bellamy. We got D. Ray Davis. We got Marlon Wayans. We got Melanie Camacho. We got Dion Cole, my guy. He'll be the host. Ada Rodriguez. And once again, tickets are on sale right now. And we'll be giving away our next pair of tickets tomorrow and then Friday. And then I'm told from my show producer that we also have some other announcements that we'll be making on this big, fine program, Studio110.live, whenever she tells me we're going to be doing it this week. So excited about that. But let's leverage and welcome in my next in-studio guest. It's great to have you back. The last time you were here on the air with me here at Studio110.live, I expressed to you, Anthony, that I wanted you to be back in the studio. And what do you know? 3 weeks later, you're back.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me back.
Thank you, man, for coming back in. And it was great to meet you last time. And you've got a big event. It's a big fight going down this coming Saturday evening. And that's why I wanted you to have you back in this afternoon to talk about that.
Yeah. This Saturday, we'll be back here in Seattle for the first time in about 5 years, putting on a show for all the friends and family, and looking to knock this boy out and get this money and this win and go home and celebrate.
There you go. Just says it so eloquently and so easy. Just knock him to the floor, just ice cold, and then go home and kick back and watch a movie. You know, that's pretty much how it'll go down. Who are we facing in the ring this coming Saturday?
A gentleman by the name of Randy Zarza. He's from up north, close to Canada area. Really tough guy, more of a brawler. Not really technical, but doesn't really matter who we're against, man. We're going in there to get the job done.
Are you exactly? Are you you probably not concerned in the least?
No, man. It's just another fight. I've done this so many times now. It's just it's like clockwork, man. It's just a process. You go through it. It's fight week now, so we're just getting ready, getting the mind right, and go in there and get this victory and go home. Exactly.
And now I'm sure your crew, your camp, your management. I mean, any levels of communication coming from the other camp in preparation for this Saturday's big fight. Is he nervous? Has he expressed anything? Is there any smack being talked? Any below the belt business taking place?
Not that I'm aware of. I'm sure he's nervous. I'm sure he's thinking about it. I mean, he has his hands full come Saturday. I'll probably be the best person he'll ever face in his life. So he has his hands full for sure. But outside of that, I don't hear any smack talking. I don't do any smack talking. So I'll just go in there and let my performance do the talking for me. And
you described him as a brawler. How would you describe you?
I'm a technician. I'm a wrestler. So looking to take people down and beat them up.
So your background's in Greco-Roman wrestling, like
freestyle wrestling and folk style wrestling.
Okay. Like Randy Couture style?
Yeah, he was more of a Greco guy, but he did collegiate style or folk style as well. Yeah.
Okay, so how's your standing game?
Stand-up was pretty good. I've had a little bit of kickboxing experience over the years, but mainly I'm a grappler. I think I have about 9 knockouts. One of them is the second fastest in UFC history for heavyweights, so it's okay. Not too bad.
Nice.
Yeah.
How are you going to get him down on the ground?
I'm not sure yet. We'll take our time. Honestly, I'll probably take my time and beat him up a little bit, and then when he's tired, I'll probably just take him down against the cage and,
let him wear himself out trying to kick you and punch you?
I'll be doing most of the work. He'll just be trying to survive. So
that's little smack talk, almost, not
Yeah,
quite, but it's a
yeah.
little bit. That's
It's
just
like
confidence. Let's
borderline
call that
smack talk.
confidence.
It's
Let's call that
confidence.
confidence.
It's confidence.
Right
yeah,
on.
yeah.
Okay.
How long do you expect the overall production, Mr. Anthony Hamilton, to take this Saturday until he just is laying down there begging for ultimately begging for a paramedic to come in and save his life ultimately? So
I don't think he's going to have the opportunity to beg. I think he's going to be out before that time comes. But I would say by the end of round one or sometime in the beginning of round two, he's going to be out. He won't be knowing where he's at or what he's doing.
yeah, and then when you get to that point of kind of mindset where you'll just kind of, I don't know your style, but your arms and hands just go up and you stand in the middle and just thank the crowd and just go home.
Yeah, man. I'm just gonna thank the Lord and pay my respects to the friends and family that made the trip and hug my coaches and my brother who will be in my corner and that'll be it.
I'm going to try my best to be there. I told my show producer Erica that Snoop Dogg and Migos are here this Saturday. And I'm hoping for the opportunity to I'm scheduled to do some interviews with the guys backstage. So
Sweet.
I'm trying to be at both if I can, but I'm hoping that you call me since we have each other's phone numbers. That I'm expecting you to win. That's without a question in my mind. But maybe there'll be like a little after party that I can attend, so I can still be part of the festivities.
Yeah, I gave your producer some information, and she'll get some more details here coming soon. But at that new house I was telling you I just bought, we're going to be having an after party there. So everybody that is close friends and family will be invited.
Yeah, we will definitely not be giving out that address on the air. We'll definitely not be doing that. But for people that are worthy of having access to that event, they'll definitely be there. Let's talk about let's kind of get back up some history here with you. What was it about fighting that just intrigued you to such a high level to become an official pro MMA fighter?
I just really like the competition. I like the journey. It's such an amazing ride from start to finish. And when you set a goal and then you start to put in the work and go after it, I just really loved all aspects of that. And then you have that climax where you're actually out there in front of millions of people, doing what you love to do and competing. And so that to me was just amazing. And I was sold on that idea. I think initially what got me into it is I always wanted to be better than everyone else. I always wanted to be a better version of myself also. And when I grew up, I grew up really poor and had a lot of abuse and things that happened to me. So I always wanted to prove to everybody that I wasn't this undersized, underprivileged, whatever, all these other things that people always try to throw at me. And I just wanted to prove the world that I was great.
There you go. If you're just tuning into the big program right now, Studio 110.live, my guy for the last half hour of the big show here today, Studio 110.live, Mr. Anthony Hamilton, a pro MMA fighter right here from the Pacific Northwest, his second in-studio visit. I wanted him to come back because he's got this big event that he'll be at, a big pro MMA fight going down this coming Saturday. Refresh my memory again where this will be taking place.
Snoqualmie Casino.
Snoqualmie Casino, correct? And your opponent's name, Randy?
Randy Zarza.
Randy Zarza. And he's also here from the Pacific Northwest?
He is. He's from up north, close to Canada border.
And then have you guys actually met before, or will you guys have an opportunity to meet before you approach each other in the ring? Or
we'll meet Friday night at the weigh-ins, but outside of that, I've never met this guy before. I've seen him compete before, and that was it. I'm sure he knows who I am, though.
I'm sure he knows who you are. And at the weigh-in on Friday. For the pre-event, it's not going to be any there's not going to be any smiles going on. It's not going to be friendly. It'll just be like, hey man, just prepare for destruction. I hope you make it out of this, huh?
I'm super respectful, so I'll thank him for taking this fight, and
that's nice. You're going to thank him for kicking his ass. That's good.
Yeah,
that's good.
Wish him luck, and that'll be it. And then I'll go home and put the finishing touches on and be ready for Saturday.
There you go. And
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
So you talk about being the best and proving you're the best, and you got into this. So it sounds like you want to prove to yourself, you can overcome.
Absolutely.
You're totally resilient. You're total badass. So my question to you is it's obviously you got to go in with this idea I'm just gonna beat the snot out of this people. Your opponents it's not even a thought to you. Clearly, you go in with this domination mindset. This is mine. Forget about it. My question to you is, a really good competitor can make you even better.
Absolutely.
How do you like go, how does that work in your mind? Like, I want someone who's going to make me even better, but I still want to beat them. Like, how does that work in your head?
Well, I do approach it confidently. I need to tell myself and I need to speak it into existence every moment, especially leading up to the fight, the week of the fight or whatever. I need to tell myself how great I am. I need to make sure that I'm speaking it and I'm believing, not only knowing it or saying it, but truly believing it. So I try to repeat that in my mind or in my head, or when I'm talking to people, I want to just keep talking about that specifically. And then as far as when I go in there and want to compete, I know that he's tough, and I view him as being the toughest guy that I'll ever face for that moment. Nothing before that, and nothing after. I know exactly what type of fighter he is now. He's not on my level. He's not ready for me. He's not done the things that I've done. But when I step into that cage, I'll be prepared for everything. He's the best man I've ever faced in my life. And then after that, it'll go back to Randy Zarza. He's just another guy. He's just another face that I had to beat up. So
That's a great edge, though, that moment where you're like, this is it. Like, he's at my level. You don't underestimate him, which is like probably one of the most dangerous things you can do, right?
Absolutely, especially being a heavyweight and a big guy. Everybody's tough. Everybody's strong. It's only going to take one punch, and it could be over for you. So I need to be my best that night.
Do you change your training depending on who you're facing?
A little bit, yes. Depending on their style, then I'll focus more on things throughout the training camp. But at the end of the day, it's really just me. I'm gonna face whoever I'm gonna face. They're gonna be tough in their own ways, but my ability is limitless, and my only true challenge is going to be me, and I need to believe in me and be the best that I can be, and that's the only thing that I need to overcome when I'm in there is any challenges that arise inside of me.
I just hope people see how smart you are, because people watch MMA and they're like, oh, they're just hitting each other with their fists. I'm like, there's a chess game going on.
Absolutely.
Right?
It's so spiritual. It's so many different things for me. I get so emotional every fight. It doesn't matter what level it is or where it is, because I never got into this for the money and the fame. I got into it, like I said in the beginning, I got into it for the journey and for the experience. And man, I just love it so much. It means so much to me. It's something more than just a fight.
Well, it looks like the MMA's transforming you and you're transforming MMA. It's a good relationship, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And when you and I were on the air in the 1 o'clock hour, we kind of talked about just kind of the badass mentality and the right projection to kind of wrap your inner senses around. So I mean, here's a perfect example right here of ultimately kind of the projected outline from what we were talking about earlier on today's show. With that being said, Anthony Hamilton, I'm hoping I can be at the event, but if not, I will attend the after party. Yes. To the best of my ability. Let's talk about some of the ranks and titles you've held, because this in no way, shape, or form is your first rodeo here.
No, this will be fight 29, I believe, overall.
Yep.
So, I mean, I've done this so many times. I competed as a wrestler my entire life, so I had hundreds of wrestling matches. I've had a few kickboxing matches. So it's just another day, another walk in the park.
And if we had to ask you, which I will be asking right now, who would you classify as your hero? Who is someone that you look up to?
Jesus Christ.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, greatest man that's ever walked the earth.
There you go. And I'm sure you'll be having that man in your head as you're entering in the cage, and as you employ pure destruction. I mean, literally.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's a sport. I'm going out there to compete. I'm looking to hurt this guy, but I don't want to really truly hurt him long term. Just enough for me to get the victory and get my hand raised.
There you go. And I'm not advocating this in any way, shape, or form, but there's something called flashbangs. And this is just kind of an example that I think would add a lot of kind of pyro, which I'm sure there already is, embedded into the overall production of Saturday's fight. And whether you guys have fireworks or I don't know what you guys can do on the pyro side, but just kind of that whole kind of thought process on a flashbang, that when those flashbangs go off as you enter into the cage on Saturday, and people just become speechless. They become speechless in the sense that they have no idea what they're about to witness. They have no idea what's about to go down within, potentially 5 minutes. I mean, it can happen that quick.
Yeah, it can happen real quick. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I don't want to think about those aspects of it too much. I have a job to do. I'm gonna go in there and beat Randy Zarza up and get home. I need to focus on the Lord, focus on my training, focus on myself, and be the best man that I can be that night, and then the rest will take care of itself.
What advice do you give to up-and-coming fighters that are ultimately trying to capture a dream like you built for yourself, Anthony, to be able to be in a cage one day in front of a large audience?
Embrace that passion. If you really truly love the sport, or you really truly love anything, you'll do whatever it takes. You'll find a way to make it happen. And hard work solves everything, I believe. And no matter what obstacles you face or challenges you may have in your life, if you just work hard, you can do it. Just keep doing that. Never focus on the money or the fame, because that stuff can be here today, gone tomorrow. But it'll always be there as long as you stay focused and worked hard.
Yep. And how many more fights do you expect to see before you just kind of hang it up, before you're just done?
I don't know. I thought about this one possibly being the last one, only because it would be back here for the first time in about 5 years. So for the friends and family and so forth. And I have 2 little kids at home, so I need to focus on them a little bit more. But right now, if I go out there and have a great performance, then I know that I can go a little bit longer, and maybe I'll talk to the family about going a little bit further, maybe another year or 2, and see what happens.
And let's talk about the workout regimen preparing for this fight. I'm imagining you're in the gym for several hours a day, and every day is it the same workout routine, or do you change it up?
Every day is different. We do at least 2 or 3 workouts a day. Usually it's some form of strength and conditioning, and then combine that with a skills workout. So for instance, on Monday you might have a boxing in the evening, but in the morning you might run 3 or 5 miles or something like that, right? And then Tuesday you'll have weights in the morning, and then wrestling in the evening. Wednesday, you're back to striking again in the evening, but then maybe you swim in the morning or something like that. And it's every single day. If you get burnt out or tired, or maybe on a Sunday you do a recovery workout like a yoga or something like that.
And let's talk about the meal preparation. What are you eating day of? I mean, are we eating cheeseburgers, or what are we eating?
No. I have a nutritionist that I work with, a couple of different ones of those guys. Somebody that makes the food for me, and then somebody who also kind of tells me what supplements to take. I don't know, all kind of recovery stuff, little tricks in building my body up for the fight. So like loading the glycogen and all this other stuff into your body so that you're ready to really push for a real intense, 15 or however many minutes that it goes. So it's a lot of different parts.
So if it was up to you, though, like what would you tell your team to prepare for you for dinner, like the meal right before you emerge in there and cause destruction?
Right now we have like a steak and rice on tap for the evening before the fight, and then we're just loading water the whole rest of the night.
So a lot of bottled water will be consumed before you enter into that cage and take down Mr. Randy Garza? Zarza. See, I wasn't joking earlier when I said last names can sometimes be tough, Salim. So
do you train it with Ivan Salaverry, or what?
I do. I train with Ivan when I'm here in Seattle. I've been in Albuquerque, Chicago, Las Vegas a lot over the last 7-8 years or so. But when I'm here in Seattle, I train with Ivan.
I heard he's the destination for MMA.
I believe so. I think he has all the different weights. He has men and women. So he can provide everything. He's a veteran. He has a lot of connections to, a lot of the greatest fighters in the world. And he's been there himself. He's done it a lot of times. So he's been at the highest level. So he knows what it takes.
Right on.
Well, I would hope, a fun opportunity for me, just because I love hosting things. I love being on the mic when I'm not in the studio on the air, and maybe there'll be an opportunity one day, Anthony, for an up-and-coming fight. For me to be kind of like your hype guy, for me to come out there and get on the mic. And then, with that being said, I mean, no pressure. You're going to already have enough on your plate after you take down this, we'll just call him this guy. We don't even need to mention his name anymore because Anthony's my guy. And you and I are both very competitive. I could give two iotas about the competition. But with that being said, and Erica, my show producer, will be there, and nothing would make me happier than getting an audio clip after you win, being in the middle of the cage saying, my guy Dirty Harry said that I would win this. So the entire Snoqualmie Casino could hear it. But
Yeah,
that's up to you. I mean, that's a lot to ask, and believe me, I'm joking when I say this to you. Please don't take me seriously. But if I was in there, I'd be doing it, and I'd be doing it for us together. So
Yeah. I thought when you were building up to this, I thought you were going to tell me you wanted to take a fight, and I would help you get ready for that.
I don't think I'd be able to host a show for 6 weeks if I decided to get into a ring or a cage and take on you. I don't.
We could find somebody else for you to beat up.
Someone similar to my size and height. Yeah, I mean, I still don't think it would be pretty. I mean, I'd have to get a couple of my buddies down there to. With a flip of my my thumb, they come in and just instantaneous backup. Because I'm just not a fan of being in pain. But
You kind of strike me as a weapons guy. Like they're coming at you with fists. You're like, I got a gun. Let's just.
yeah. I mean, yeah.
You're like, let's not mince words. We don't need to fight.
Yeah.
Let's just call it right now.
I like one of my buddies. I'll just classify him as Amir, and he's always had a great line that he always reminds me of. He owns a venue here in the city, and he says, Dirty Harry, if anybody ever messes with you, you call me, and I'll pull out a machete. So I mean, it's just like it's not
Awesome.
it's not bad to have people like that they're really looking out for your best interests.
Remind me not to make you mad.
Well, I mean, I just he he takes it with such honor when he brings. I don't even provoke him to say this. He just he always reminds me of it, and it's not bad to have friends like that. But hopefully, I'll never have to. Utilize their instantaneous backup responses because I live a low profile life. I'm not one that I don't get myself in hot situations. But like we talked about earlier, and like Anthony and I have talked about, you just you don't want to mess with the wrong people. I mean, that just goes for anybody today. You just don't want to.
And you never know.
I think the best decision is just not to mess with anyone.
Right, exactly. I mean, just because you never know, and even for getting in someone's face and start talking crap. I mean, some people
Never a good idea.
Never a good idea. And some people just don't have the knowledge, prep just to walk away from that. I mean,
Self-awareness.
Yeah, I would think if you walked up to Anthony and you talked crap about him, I mean, I don't even know if you'd see the daylight of day. I mean,
You don't have that problem though, do you?
No.
I'm just saying hypothetically, if someone had the audacity to walk up to you and talk crap, I mean, what kind of outcome is it going to be? I mean,
Oh yeah. No. I'm a pretty low key guy. Even if somebody's running their mouth, it doesn't really matter to me too much. But once they touch me, then that's a different story. But you'd be surprised. Some people think that they're tough guys, especially driving down the street. They have no idea who's in the car, next to them, but they want to threaten people and
road rage. Yeah,
do all this other stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't have a problem with following them for a few blocks and see how tough they really are.
Yeah.
So if they change once you start following them, or they pull in somewhere and then you get out, everything changes. So,
yeah. And sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes you need to follow them a little bit off that exit and start taking some video to really scare them. So not something that's so out of the ordinary today, especially in Los Angeles. Road rage down there is on the rise on a completely different level. I mean, my last trip down to LA, someone was honking the horn at an intersection, and the person, hit him, literally hit them just to, be able to express their road rage. And I think, do we have to really go that far?
Oh, and in the weapons thing, that is the one time I think keep mace in your glove box in case someone approaches your car. That way, nobody dies, but you send a clear message.
Yeah.
That is one thing I am a proponent of.
Yeah.
Back to that conversation.
Or bear spray or whatever you can get your hands on to.
I think that's illegal, but I'm not sure.
Well, who knows? I have some friends that I don't have it, but I have some friends that carry it, and hopefully they'll never have to use that. So, all right, it's been a great Tech Tuesday show. Exactly how I planned it to go down today. Thank you again to my buddy Anthony Hamilton. I wish you nothing but success in the fighting cage arena at Snoqualmie Casino. The entire staff at Snoqualmie Casino, my friend, should be honored and lucky to have you in their building this Saturday, and I can't wait. Hopefully I'll be interviewing Snoop or Migos and be getting the alert on my phone from my show producer Erica saying your boy Anthony took care of business, and nothing will make me happier. And I will tell the guys that too backstage at that show. So
awesome.
I will make sure that it's known in such a high vantage point. So we will get that. Salim, I want to thank you for coming in, and excited to play your song from Fetty Wap, and to talk about the upcoming movie that we're about to see you on. And no pressure to you too. If you want to give Dirty Harry a shout out in a major up and coming movie, I
will, brother.
I won't turn it down. I won't turn it down. And we have several fine dinner establishments here at Studio 110.live's headquarters, and I'd return the favor for a nice piece of salmon or something. So
Sounds like a plan, brother.
There you go. So I think that would be nice gesture in return. So I will do that, and of course the one and only Maura Barclay. A speaker, a consultant, an actor, a firefighter, a motivational speaker, someone that ultimately wants to help people out overall. Thank you for acting as my unexpected co-host today. And I love the Zara jacket again. Keep Zara on the map for us like I do, and I'm sure you do too. And I know you have a busy travel schedule, but it would be great to have you back in, more not to be as a co-host, although you're a great co-host, but just to talk about more empowerment issues that people need to be aware of and that people need to face in their relationships or whatever relationships they're in today. I want to kind of wrap it up here with the Laugh Your Ass Off with Icons of Comedy going down at the Kent Shower Center. It's happening June 30th. Real quick, we got Bill Bellamy, D. Ray Davis, Marlon Wayans, Melanie Camacho. Who else we got here on this hot list? Dion Cole, Ada Rodriguez. Man, tickets are on sale right now. You can call the Kent Showwear Center down there. You can go to their box office. You can go online. Man, get them, I'm telling you. And we'll be giving away tickets tomorrow and Friday on the big show here. If you're not following us on our Instagram, like I say every day, what are you waiting for? So definitely do that. Studio 110.live. It's been a great show. I look forward to getting back on the air in the captain's chair Monday through Friday, 1 to 3 Pacific Standard Time. Studio 110.live. If you're listening to us on the West Coast, you got 2 hours left, 3 days left till it's weekend time, right? And until then, we will see you tomorrow, 1 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. Thank you to my show producer, Erica, Aaron, Ryan, Julianne, Cristiano, Pierre, Haley, Jen, the entire staff here that works so hard behind the scenes at Studio 110.live. And if it's okay with my show producer, I'd like to be able to make one of the announcements tomorrow, and I will consult with her as soon as I get off the radio here. The live podcast show, the hottest live podcast show hitting the airwaves here. Studio 110.live.